庭のバラは赤く、テーブルクロスは白。さあ、完璧なティーパーティーを始めよう。ここでは僕こそがルール。返事ははい寮長だ。お分かりだね。僕こそが絶対正しいんだ。ディズニーツイステッドワンダーランド好評配信中。
Yes, my 3 loyal fans can finally rejoice, because today we are finally covering Book 1 of Twisted Wonderland, titled The Rose-Red Tyrant. Now, the Beanfest and prologue stories are just fine. The story really wasn't the main focus. The prologue is more so just a tutorial and introducing you to the world, while Beanfest is just basically a tie-in to explain what the outfits and the cards are. But the Rose-Red Tyrant is when the writers actually decide to lock the fuck in and start delivering some of the genuinely most well-written characters and stories I've ever read. We start with the MC having a dream about the events of Alice in Wonderland, which is going to become a thing throughout most of the rest of the main story. It doesn't really change anything until a few books in, but it's mostly just here to show the parallels between the character in Twisted Wonderland's story and the original Disney movie that they're based on. Grimm and the MC are both woken up, and we realize that the vision was a dream, and we go to see who the fuck wants to get punched in the face for waking us up at this hour, only to discover who the fuck else to be causing trouble. Ace, who's got one of Riddle's collars around his neck. Apparently, he ate a tart he wasn't supposed to, and instead of apologizing, he decides to run away like the little bitch he is and ask if he can move into Ramshackle. No! Anyways, after a sleepover, Ace's boyfriend, Deuce, comes over and looking for him and decides to go with him to apologize. Grimm and the MC also decide to tag along since they're curious about what some of the other dorms are like. So we go to the Hall of Mirrors and enter a portal through another mirror, and we end up in the Hartsville dorm. We walk around for a bit and find the gayest character in a very queer-coded game in the garden painting some roses. This is Cater Diamond.
I'm as gay as springtime.
Anyways, we learn that Cater's doing this because of some rule stating that all these roses have to be painted red for the upcoming unbirthday party, and he decides to volunteer us to help him. And we get our first twist tune of this one, which is actually pretty fun in my opinion.
Paint! Must paint! Everything clean! Paint!
Wow, honey, you've painted the entire house. 3 times.
Must paint! Everything clean! Everything new!
After we do his chores for him, he kicks us out, because Cater is a dick, but also because Ace didn't bring a replacement tart for the one he ate, and as a rule states, everything stolen must be replaced. We then go to our first day of classes, where we meet who seem to be the only 3 teachers in this entire school. Cruel, the potionology teacher who seems to have a weird pet thing that he takes out on his students. Trian, the comparatively normal history teacher who has his own pet cat, and Vargas, the gym coach. We go to lunch and Cater meets up with us along with another character named Trey. They give us the rundown on all of the dorms. There's Hartsville for the Queen of Hearts, which has a bunch of strict rules. Savannah Claw for Scar, which is full of jocks. Octavanille for Ursula, which is full of shady dealmakers. Scarabia for Jafar, which is basically a party house. Pomfior for the Evil Queen, which is full of beauty gurus, Ignahide for Hades, which is full of game-loving introverts, and finally Dysomnia for Maleficent, which is full of the most powerful mages. One Dysomnia student in particular teleports over and greets us, that being Lilia, who immediately is way more likable than most of the actual characters we are friends with, making me wish I could trade him for Grimm. Ace Riddle was standing right behind us just in time to hear Ace crap talking. Trey and Cater decide to help us with the replacement tart since Trey is basically a baker, having been raised by parents who own their own bakery, and he gives us the list of things we need to make our own tarts. First, we make our way to the botanical gardens to get some ingredients, where, oh hey wait, I accidentally stepped on something, I wonder what it—
おい、人の尻尾踏んでおいて素通りとはいい度胸だ。お前。ああ、入学式で鏡に魔法が使えねえって言われてた草食動物か。
Sorry, back to the video. This is Leona Kingscholar, who I'm like 90% sure is the entire reason this game has a fan base. Not only does he have like the most thirst trap character design I've ever seen in a game, but the way the artists consistently draw him in every single official artwork of him shows that they know there is a furry audience out there, and they are trying to attract as many of them as possible. Anyways, he almost steals our teeth for waking him up, but his little friend Ruggy comes by and tells him he has to go do some work, so they both leave, leaving us to get the supplies we came for and go start collecting the actual chestnuts we need for the tart. Deuce actually goes to a place called Sam's Mystery Shop, which is actually based off of 2 movies. The character of Sam himself is based off of Dr. Facilier from Princess and the Frog, who sadly is the only staff member at the school to not get a card as of me recording this audio. I don't even think the Japan server has a card for him, and this is after he's been the focal point of multiple events, and the fact that the JP server is on like their 6th anniversary now. It's also seemingly based off of the Mystery Shack from Gravity Falls, at least that's what me and my friend Lexi think. And Sam is also the actual shopkeep that you go to whenever you need to get supplies or upgrades for your characters in the game. Anyway, Deuce gets some eggs over there, but unfortunately on the way to the kitchen with Trey, he ends up spilling some when he bumps into some delinquents. They refuse to apologize, and after beating them up, we learn that Deuce is an actual dumbass. And that's not an exaggeration. We learned that the only reason he went after these delinquents for breaking the eggs was because he thought that eggs you used in baking were actually fertilized and were going to hatch into little chicks. It also shows that Deuce might secretly be sadistic, because while he beats up these bullies for what he thinks was killing a bunch of baby chickens, he himself was fully prepared to bake these baby chickens into a tart just to get his friend out of trouble. Deuce might be a serial killer. Cue cooking twist tune.
You gotta do the cooking by the book. You know you can't be lazy.
Anyways, we go off to that unbirthday party thing Cater mentioned earlier to present the tart to him, and Riddle actually seems pretty happy with how the party's going. So I'm sure if Ace just goes up and offers him the tart now, everything should be fine.
マロンタルトだって信じられない。え？ハートの女王の法律第562条。なんでもない日のティーパーティーにマロンタルトを持ち込むべからず。これは重大なルール違反だ。なんてことをしてくれたんだい。完璧ななんでもない日が台無しじゃないか。
Yeah, so turns out we were actually in violation of a rule that even Trey, the vice house warden of Hartzebule, could not memorize. So we are kicked out, and when we try to argue, Riddle just decides to collar all of us, except for Trey and Cater, because I guess those are his favorites. While outside, we actually meet another one of Riddle's friends. This time, one who doesn't actually even go to Night Raven, as we meet Shenya, the Cheshire Cat character who materializes out of nowhere. We learn that not only was Shenya a childhood friend of Riddle, but so was Trey, and Ace starts accusing Trey of coddling him his whole life. After some more walking around back and forth, we actually meet up with the head mage, who reveals that there's an easy way to get Riddle out of the house warden seat. The only way is that Ace, Deuce, or another Hartzebule member has to battle with him, and if they win, they get to be the new house warden. And even if they don't, Riddle would still be forced to take the collars off of everyone to make the fight fair. Everyone shows up to the fight, and Riddle takes the collars off, only to proceed to immediately lock them back on the first chance he gets in the fight, meaning the fight doesn't even last 10 seconds. Riddle then starts to get cocky and takes it a little too far by insulting Deuce and Ace's bloodline, saying that they clearly weren't raised in families with powerful mages, otherwise they'd have at least lasted 10 seconds in the fight. Ace then decides, screw de-escalation tactics, and decks Riddle in the fucking face. Ace goes on to call Riddle a spoiled little baby, and even says that the rest of Hartzebule is also fed up with him, they're just too scared to say anything. During the argument, an unknown student actually ends up throwing an egg at Riddle, which only makes him more mad. Ace continues to taunt Riddle, who tells him to take it back, and when Ace refuses, the rose bushes in the garden start floating up, and he says that he's going to skewer Ace where he stands, and tries to literally murder him by stabbing the rose bushes through him. So yeah, book 1 of 7, and one of our characters is already attempting murder. Trey steps in and saves Ace, but everyone's still pretty shocked that he was actually willing to just kill Ace. Riddle starts going into a super paranoid rant, accusing everyone of saying he's wrong. But he can't be wrong. He's worked his whole life with this philosophy that he's always right. If he's not right, then what was all of this for? Throughout the entire book, we've seen close-ups of an unknown mage stone, slowly turning blacker and blacker. And it's revealed here that this was actually Riddle's. And now, his mage stone has gone from red to completely black. Crowley yells at him to stop, but it's too late.
僕こそが絶対正しいんだリドル
Before we continue with the main story, I actually want to talk about the Overblot songs that were recently released as part of the 5th anniversary celebration, where all 7 of the Overblot bosses that are currently in the game got their own Disney villain song. Riddle's is titled Red Heart Rage, and it probably gives us the deepest look to any of these characters out of all the songs, at least in my opinion. Every single lyric gives you a great idea of Riddle's philosophy at the time of the Overblot, and the philosophy that defines his entire life up to the Overblot. Not to mention, it's just a fucking banger song, and there's one line in here that we'll specifically be talking about here in a second. We get the fight, and this is unfortunately when I do have to complain a little bit about the combat mechanics. I actually do really enjoy the fighting minigames in Twisted Wonderland. The problem is that there's never really anything added to them, so while they're really fun early on, you do kind of start getting more jaded to them when the only thing that's really added is the difficulty. We get a flashback where Riddle's mom is kinda being a bitch to him when he was younger on one of his birthdays. We learn that Riddle was apparently raised purely just to study. The only hour of the day he gets by himself was a single hour of individual study time. Literally every second of this kid's life was meant to be studying. That is until one day when a younger Shenya and younger Trey showed up at his door, or I guess window, begging him to come play with him. Riddle started sneaking out with them and playing with them, and for the first time in his life, he actually really enjoyed himself. For once, he let himself consistently let his mom's rule go just for 1 hour every day to go see 2 genuine friends. But one day, he was out too long, and unfortunately, he lost track of time and his mom caught them. He broke one rule, and suddenly the only bit of joy this child genuinely got was taken away from him. And that really shows the philosophy that has shaped his life and brought him to the point of the Overblot we just saw. Remember that lyric I said we'd mention later? Well, listen to it again. Freedom is obedience. Like I said, the one time he broke a rule, he lost every ounce of freedom he ever got. He's been trained to think that the only way he gets any freedom is by obeying every single rule. It's why he's the only person who's memorized all 800 something of the Queen of Hearts rules. It's why he's one of the earliest house wardens in Twisted Wonderland. My friend Lexi even had a fan theory that the reason he's so short is because his mom fed him the bare minimum intake for a child of his age and it stunted his growth. Riddle really is one of the most tragic characters I've ever seen in anything, which is kinda shocking given how mundane the game was up to this point. It's also kinda brilliant because the game lulls you into this false sense of security thinking it's just a cute little gotcha game with occasional fight minigames and some cool twist tunes and some thirst trap designed characters. But as soon as Riddle's Overblot happens, it's like a completely different game. Suddenly all of the mage characters are at risk of dying from overstress or overusing magic at any time, and we learned that the character who had been built up as villainous this entire book was kind of just an abused little child who had his childhood stolen from him.
でもなんでだ、なぜだかとってもお誕生日だけでいっぱいタルトが食べたい。お外でいっぱい遊びたい。もっといっぱい教えて、ママ。どんなルールに従えばこの苦しさは消えるの？リドル。
Riddle wakes up from the Overblot, seemingly fine, and everyone is happy to see him alive except for Ace because Ace is an asshole. Ace demands a proper apology for the hell Riddle has been putting him through, and they settle on Riddle hosting an unbirthday party in Ace's honor. The other two chapters are kind of just fun stuff, finishing off the chapters like Riddle painting some roses red, and Riddle learning to chill out, and Trey accidentally getting Riddle to make an oyster sauce tart. But what's really interesting is what happens halfway through the final chapter of Book 1.
ああ、いいな。ハーツラビルのやつら、今日はごちそう食いまくりのパーティーらしいっすよ。サバナクローにもそういう腹が膨れる伝統ないっすかね。
晴れた日の昼間にケーキやらクッキーやら食いながら楽しいパーティーだ。虫唾が走るな。それよりラギー、例の件だが。
任せてください。ちゃんと準備進んでるっすよ。
あいつらがのんきに茶を飲んでられるのも今のうちだ。気取ったマレウスのやつもな。覚悟しておけ。
Okay, finally got through all of Book 1, so I can go into the character section of this video, right? Shit! Yeah, as I mentioned in my video of the prologue, I actually didn't start off my experience with Twisted Wonderland with the game. I originally started off in this fandom when my friend Lexi let me borrow her copies of the first 3 issues of the manga. And since the first 4 issues of the manga are based off of the prologue and mostly Heartsabule, I figured I'd go ahead and go over some of the changes the manga makes from the game's story. First off, the manga is already just way better visually. Not only is all of the hand-drawn art beautiful, but you actually get to see more dynamic poses with the action scenes and characters, which really does help certain parts of the stories out. I love the game, but the fact that the characters don't really have any real animations aside from being slid across the screen and occasionally moving their arms around really does a disservice to some of the more action-heavy bits of the story. In terms of story changes, the only thing that really changes is the fact that Riddle and the rest of the Heartsabule members are far more prominent in the prologue section of the story, considering that it's been mostly just blended in with the Heartsabule stuff. With Riddle no longer having to get the assistance of Azul to catch Grimm and just doing it by himself, as well as him actually showing up to help in the fight against the Overblot monster in the cave at the end of where the prologue normally was. Along with him also just being way more of a dick in this version. Like in the game version of the story, he's like reasonable in most of the stuff he does because Ace is an annoying asshole, but here he is undeniably just a prick to everyone. But probably the single biggest change to the manga is the fact that they obviously had to get an actual character for the MC, with us getting Yuken Enma, who I actually really like. They dedicate pretty much the entire first chapter to just giving him a backstory, and it really helps having an actual fleshed out main character. Not to mention, unlike the MC in the game, he doesn't just sit there and let everyone else do all the action. He actually picks up a wooden sword and goes to fight mages way more powerful than he is. The prologue story did also have some other slight tweaks, like you meeting Ace and Deuce at the same time instead of separately like in the game, and it taking way longer for Grimm to become your official companion. Okay, now that I've talked about the manga, I can surely move on to doing the character section of this video, right? There's nothing else. The story of the anime is pretty much a one-to-one adaptation of the manga, just with color and actual movement and animation. The one and only major difference between the manga story and the anime story is that you get a lot more small cameos from characters who are mostly just in different books. Specifically, the orientation scene that makes up the bulk of the first episode gives you a small moment with almost every single one of the main students, allowing you to get a small taste of characters who you're probably not going to see in the anime proper for like 3 more seasons. But man, even though there's really not much of a difference story-wise from the manga, I do really think that the anime is the definitive way to get the Heartsebulan prologue story. I love the game and the voice acting and getting to play the twist tunes and fighting minigames, and I really enjoy cracking open one of the manga books and reading through those. But man, getting to see these moments in full color, in full animation, with full English voice acting, just hits a spot for me that neither the game nor the manga are able to. Like getting to actually hear Riddle say "off with your head" in English, and getting to hear him cry and see the pleading look in his eyes as he's slowly dragged away by his mother, hits just the right spot for me, for what I want from this story. Also, I'd like to point out that in this version of the story, we actually see Crowley using defensive spells to protect all of the Heartsebulan students. Again, adding to my file of proof that he does actually care, he's just incompetent. There is only one thing in the manga that really pisses me off. And in the grand scheme of things, it is something really small. But it really bugs me probably more than it should. And that is that the show seems actively trying to hide Yukin as the main character sometimes. Like, I get it with the book covers. You want to highlight the characters from that specific house on the covers. But you're telling me you couldn't even put Yukin in the theme song? Yeah, he's there, but you don't even get to see his fucking face. Trian's goddamn cat gets more attention in the theme song than Yukin does, and he's the main character. There is probably a reason why we don't get to see his face in the theme song, and I will get to that probably in the Savannah Claw video specifically, since that's where my theory for why they don't show Yukin's face comes in. The last thing to talk about with the anime is the dorm song, which was also released for each of the 7 dorms as part of the game's 5th anniversary, and the Heartsebulan one is used as the ending theme for at least the first season of the anime. There's not some deep character study I can do here like I did with Riddle's Overblot song, it's just a really damn catchy song. I really cannot recommend enough that you seek this song out in full, because obviously they can't play the full 3-minute song for the ending, so it's a cut down version, and I just adore almost all of the Twisted Wonderland songs. There's like very few that I don't like, and even the ones I don't like from this series are just kind of not my taste. Okay, now after like 3 detours, we can finally move back to the character section. I'll be skipping over Ace and Cater, because neither of them really get much character development in this one. Ace continues to be obnoxious and cause most of the problems, and Cater is pretty much just a one-note social media guy. Some of his dialogue does kinda get on my nerves a bit, but I get that he's a likable character for a lot of people, so I'm not gonna spend time hating on him. Deuce gets a little bit of development this time around. We know from the prologue that he was kind of a klutz, but a lot of that stuff just seems like acting in the moment and not having your best thoughts at mind. But here we do learn that he is just kind of a goofy little idiot, and we also get to see way more of his aggressive side here, which sadly isn't fleshed out much in the game itself, but in a lot of the events we do get a lot more development towards his past as a delinquent. Next we have Trey, who, fun fact, that excites me at least, the English anime voice actor for Trey is Johnny Young Bosch, who I and many others will probably recognize as Adam Park from Power Rangers. He was the second Mighty Morphin Black Ranger, the only Green Zeo Ranger, and the first Green Turbo Ranger. So he's definitely someone that I was very excited to hear was a part of this, since he's one of my favorite Power Rangers from the Mighty Morphin era, and I think he's really underrated. I also do think it's kind of funny that he played 2 Green Rangers, and now he's voicing a character with a lot of green in his design. I feel like that had to have been at least a little bit on purpose. But talking about his actual character, Trey is shown as a very protective and fatherly figure, with a lot of people kind of labeling him the dad of the cast, which some of the vignettes really do show off. Specifically, I think his school uniform card is the one where he makes Ace and Deuce brush their teeth really well. It's kind of a cute character quirk and really does come in with how he coddles Riddle. I also do want to dedicate a small section to Yukon, since he is technically a new character. I really love his backstory and the little side characters we meet. I'm really excited to see more of these characters. Sure would be a shame if the manga replaced him with a completely new character with no explanation, but I'm sure they'd never do something like that. And lastly is Riddle, a character who is just not sugarcoating it, straight up abused. He's conditioned like an animal to act the exact way his mother wants, but through his trauma we do see that Riddle has grown into an extremely capable mage, becoming house warden within just 3 days of entering the school if I remember correctly, and ruling over Hartzebuel with an iron fist. He does definitely chill out more in the other books of the game, but I'm kinda glad they don't give him his super happy ending of getting away from his abusive mom. Don't get me wrong, I'm sure everyone would love Riddle to get a super happy ending where he's whisked away from his mother forever. But we see in later books that his mother does still have a tight hold on him, and I'm kinda glad they don't just go the unrealistic route of having Riddle get an easy out away from his abuser. A lot of people like this in real life are stuck with their parents/abusers. So I think it's kind of neat that they show a character who manages to be strong despite living in such a bad environment. And with that, I thank you all for coming to watch, and I will hopefully have the Savannah Claw video out in a much shorter time period.